Our constituents, the people who live in these regions, say that this infrastructure bank will only enrich private investors. They are the ones who will benefit. They are the Liberals' friends. And that's not good for Canadians. And it's not good for regions like Drummond and Richmond-Athabasca, and it's certainly not good for middle-class Canadians and those working hard to join the middle class.
By members, Déclaration des députés, the honourable member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the true measure of a country and its communities is how we treat our most vulnerable citizens. Speaker, adults living with developmental and physical disabilities are amongst those most vulnerable. This past Sunday, I had the pleasure with a few of my Mississauga and Brampton colleagues and hundreds of supporters to assist in raising precious funds through a bike-a-thon and walk-a-thon for the Luso Charitable Society. All proceeds raised go towards funding the just-opened Luso Peel Region Home, which provides supports, programs, and services in a nurturing environment to those most in need. Hearing from caregivers and family members about what this home means to them and their loved ones just filled the hearts of all those in attendance. This is the third Luso home to open. The others service the areas of Toronto and Hamilton, and like those in the bike-a-thon, they are on a roll, and we will be the wind at their backs along this highway of caring. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am proud to rise and recognize the St. Thomas and District Chamber of Commerce Free Enterprise Award winners. The 2017 Chairs Award recognized Janet Baker for her work and service to the Chamber and our community. This award recognizes Janet's dedication and over 16 years as both a Chamber and South Communities volunteer. The Chamber Awards of Merit went to Jamie Quay of Quay de Ven State Wineries, being named the 2016 Ontario Grape King. Jamie is only the second recipient in 60 years to be named the Grape King or Grape Grower of the Year from outside of the traditional Niagara growing area. Chris Dry began Talbot Trail Physiotherapy in 2002 with one clinic in Elmer and has grown to the enterprise to 6 locations with 35 employees serving every part of Elgin County and into Chatham-Kent and Middlesex. The 2017 Free Enterprise Master Awards include Buckland Customs Brokerage, Gary Coots of RBC Royal Bank, and the Elgin Business Resource Centre. Congratulations to all of the award winners at last night's Free Enterprise Awards.
L'honorable député de Saint-Boniface.
The honourable member for Saint-Boniface, Vital.
Manitoba Day. Demain, la province célébrera son...
Tomorrow, the entire province will celebrate its 147th anniversary and the 51st anniversary of our Manitoba flag.
Manitubao and the Cree Manitou-Wapau, our Keystone Province, is a remarkable place to live. Célébrer notre histoire au Fort.
Celebrate our history at Fort Gibraltar. Take your family on a trip to the Children's Museum. Pay tribute to Louis Riel, the father of Manitoba, at the St. Boniface Museum.
Check out the world's largest mating dens for red-sided garter snakes in the Narcisse. Visitez le Parc Saint-Vital.
Visit St. Vital Park, Assiniboia Park, or Riding Mountain National Park. Spend the day at Lake Winnipeg or Lake Manitoba.
Marl Lake, a lake that changes color with the temperature. The choices abound, Mr. Speaker. Happy birthday, friendly Manitoba.
More. Honourable member for Vancouver East.
Where can you go and find a place that is the heartbeat of the community, a place where it is the touchstone of social life, a place to help people to connect, combat isolation, and build both personal and community capacities? It is our friendly neighborhood houses, the living room of our communities, where people connect, engage, foster a sense of belonging, and take part in civic life. Canada's first neighborhood house opened in Toronto in 1899. In the Lower Mainland, 4 of 10 neighborhood houses are in East Van and the BC Association of Neighborhood Houses to boot. Like all neighborhood houses, Van East's very own Kawasa, Frog Hollow, Mount Pleasant, and Downtown Eastside neighborhood houses do invaluable work. The 2017 Leadership Forum report details this important research. As we celebrate the 3rd annual Neighborhood House Week, I call on the federal government to go beyond short-term program funding. It's time we become a true partner and support their work with stable core funding.
Honourable member for Humble River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor my longtime staff members, Greg and Julie McClinchy, who will be leaving Parliament Hill after a long tenure in my office and on the Hill. Greg has served members of Parliament since the young age of 16, first for Paul Steckley, then coming to work for me 8 years ago. Julie has served 3 members of Parliament, Brenda Chamberlain, Rosemary Ur, and myself. So over the years, both Julie and Greg have become advisors, confidants, and friends to many on Parliament Hill, lending a hand to anyone, even when it meant putting in extra hours in a day. While I am sad to lose such a valuable staff members, I am happy that Greg and Julie will be moving closer to home and their family in southwestern Ontario. Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor Greg and Julie McClinchy in this House today. It has been a privilege to work with each of them, and I am proud now to call them friends. I wish them and their family success and happiness in the future. Much love from all of us.
Honourable Member for Haldeman Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, Sarah McKelvey from my riding of Haldeman Norfolk is no stranger to athletic success. Just this past month, this talented and passionate young woman from Cayuga performed a flawless figure skating routine at the 2017 Special Olympics World Winter Games in Austria, bringing home a gold medal. Now, this isn't the first time that she's felt the gold rush. In 2013, Sarah participated in her first ever Special Olympic Games and brought home not 1, but 2 gold medals. Mr. Speaker, they say that gold medals aren't really made of gold, but that they're made of sweat, determination, and a hard-to-find alloy called guts. Well, Sarah, on behalf of everyone in Haldeman, Norfolk, I want to express to you just how very proud of you we are. Thank you for your hard work and for sharing your talent with the rest of the world.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellant. Mr. Speaker, Laval, like many cities in Quebec, has also been hard hit by flooding. In these difficult times, I've seen many initiatives taken by people in Laval, like the building of makeshift dikes or the launching of aid efforts. And I want to point out just how proud I am to represent the people of Alfred Pellant and Laval, who've shown solidarity with their fellow citizens. I also want to highlight the remarkable work being done tirelessly by the Laval police and firefighters. Thank you to Mayor Marc Demers, Deputy Mayor Marc Dakotas, and all municipal councillors who are on the ground to support flood victims and to coordinate assistance. Thank you as well to the Minister responsible for Laval, Francine Charbonneau. To the people of Laval, my colleagues and I are with you, and we will remain with you when water levels subside and it comes time to clean up. Courage.
Member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, the Iranian regime poses a danger to the world. Through its sponsorship of terrorist organizations, its support for the brutal Assad regime, and its call for the destruction of Israel, Iran's actions are of grave concern to all Canadians. But during this Iran Accountability Week, I want to speak of the deplorable human rights violations within Iran.
Iranian authorities have executed more than 200 people this year alone. The regime violates the rights of its own citizens, and the treatment it sets aside for the LGBTQ society and groups like Baha'i is deplorable.
Political prisoners. Those who dare to speak out against the government continue to be punished, unjustly, often without charges or trial. Mr. Speaker, I ask all my colleagues to join me in telling the victims of the Iranian regime that Canada stands with them and that we are committed to holding this regime accountable.
The Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Here are 3 facts, Mr. Speaker. Number 1, thanks be to God, state-sanctioned persecution in the name of Christianity is nearly extinct worldwide. Number 2, religious persecution by officially Muslim states, and even more by officially atheist regimes, is alive and well. And number 3, over 200 million Christians live in the states that are the worst offenders. As a result, more Christians face in their home countries what the Pew Research Forum calls religious restrictions than does any other faith group. This includes thousands arrested for their beliefs, some executed for spreading the gospel, and in some countries, although this is without state sanction, many slaughtered by death squads and terrorists. Now, of course, this does not reflect the situation of Christians here in Canada, but our domestic situation should not blind Canadians to the way things are elsewhere, nor keep us from speaking out on behalf of persecuted Christians worldwide. Thank you.
Honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the life of Sergeant Robert James Dinorovich, a member of the Royal Canadian Dragoons who passed away last month during exercise Rugged Bear while preparing to defend our country. In life, Sergeant Dinorovich was a hero who served our country through 2 deployments to Afghanistan. However, Mr. Speaker, he was more than a soldier. He was an outdoorsman, a compassionate family member and friend, and a man who is remembered for his leadership, his mentorship, and his kindness. His loss will be felt by our entire community. Mr. Speaker, I would ask my colleagues to join me in extending our sincerest sympathies and deepest condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones at this extremely difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May is Speech and Hearing Month. As a husband of a speech and language pathologist, it is a great honour to rise today to recognize Canada's outstanding speech-language pathologists, audiologists, and communication health assistants. Throughout the month of May, Speech and Language Audiology Canada, or SAC, and its more than 6,200 members and associates, will be highlighting the importance of early detection and intervention of speech, language, swallowing, hearing, and balance disorders. Mr. Speaker, many of us take for granted our ability to communicate, yet the ability to speak, hear, and be heard is vital to our everyday lives. On behalf of members of this House, thank you to the communication health professionals for all that you do to help Canadians reach their communication potential. Thank you.
The honourable member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals are sneaking a new gun registry in by stealth, tabling it on the same day as their pot legislation. They aren't fooling gun owners across Canada, though, that this isn't just another gun registry by another name. Bill C-47 requires any Canadian company importing firearms or firearm technology to keep records electronically. What agency will hold and administer this new electronic registry, and who will have access to it? On June 1st, the United Nations Firearm Marking Scheme also comes into effect, targeting responsible gun owners and legitimate firearm businesses, saddling them with an annual $60 million bill. Rather than protect us, this marking scheme will increase the cost of each legitimately purchased firearm by some $200. Criminals don't follow the law and they aren't going to register their guns. International arms dealers will never be compliant with the UN and they won't be registering any of their contact information. Liberals again put a target on recreational sport shooters, hunters, and small family-run businesses. Instead of wasting time and money on a new registry, how about the Liberals really tackle the criminals? Here, here.
Honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, this week residents across the Okanagan are on alert facing the uncertainty of rising floodwaters. Unfortunately, the worst may be yet to come with saturated ground, melting snowpack, and more rain in the forecast. Uncertainty and loss are causing stress and hardship for families in my communities as we all prepare to deal with the days ahead. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of the City of Kelowna, the District of Lake Country, local fire departments, and the many citizen volunteers that have come together to deal with this perilous and unpredictable situation. I am also grateful to the Government of Canada, who is both aware and prepared to provide assistance in the event that the federal response to this crisis is requested by the province of British Columbia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, last week I had the wonderful opportunity of accepting an invitation from the Royal Canadian Navy to Canadian Forces Base Esquimalt, home of Canada's Pacific Naval Fleet. There I joined with several other members of Parliament to go aboard Her Majesty's Canadian ship, Vancouver. Once aboard, Vancouver's courteous, welcoming, and professional officers and crew gave us a complete tour of this Halifax frigate capabilities and incredibly complex systems, from the bridge room to the engine room and everything in between. I had the opportunity to participate in several exercises, including damage control, firefighting, and even steering the ship. My riding is home to many naval veterans and to the civilians, Naval Reserve, and regular force members who work at CFB Esquimalt. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to experience the amazing job the sailors of the Royal Canadian Navy do on our behalf every day, and who will very much live up to the motto, ready, aye, ready.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, Taiwan, after 8 years of participating at the World Health Assembly, was not invited by the WHO to attend this year's assembly. Taiwan's participation at the WHA has enabled Taiwan to contribute to global public health and disease prevention initiatives. Indeed, Taiwan is a leader in areas of global health and disease prevention and has contributed more than $6 billion to medical and humanitarian aid since 1996. Canada has consistently supported Taiwan's participation at the WHA. Now that the WHO has bowed to political pressure to exclude Taiwan, I urge this government to call upon the WHO to reverse this decision and extend an invitation to Taiwan.
The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, as a proud registered nurse, it is my distinct honor to recognize the dedication of my fellow outstanding nurses during National Nursing Week. From working on the front lines in our hospitals or in our communities for advocating for better health care across our country, nurses are the backbone of our healthcare system. Our healthcare system would not be where it is today if it were not for the efforts of the mother of modern nursing, Florence Nightingale. Known as the Lady with the Lamp, Florence Nightingale single-handedly helped nurses gain recognition for her tireless efforts. This spirit of dedication and service is echoed by the nurses serving us every single day. So to all our dedicated, compassionate, and hardworking nurses in Brampton West, across Canada, and all over the world, I would simply like to say thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Questions orales, oral
questions.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we've warned the Prime Minister that his infrastructure bank will be a cocktail of waste, duplication, and bureaucracy, all to pad the bank accounts of the wealthy elite. We don't expect him to listen to us, but he should at least listen to the experts that he hired who told him the same thing. In fact, a KPMG report has given the government a stark warning about the pitfalls of this tax-funded bank. If this Prime Minister really believes in evidence-based policymaking, then why is he ignoring his own experts and rushing through with this bank?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, after a decade of inconsistent and ad hoc approach to supporting municipalities and provinces, we are putting forward a long-term, sustainable and predictable funding, $180 billion over 12 years that will help grow the economy, create jobs, and help those Canadians who work hard each and every day to be part of the middle class. That's what our communities expect from us. That's exactly what we are delivering. We are proud that the bank will help deliver more infrastructure that is needed in our communities from coast to coast to coast.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No, Mr. Speaker, for 10 long years, we did not give billions of dollars to billionaire bankers. This infrastructure bank could force tolls on Canadian bridges and roads, and it may also force Canadians to actually pay new fees on basic services such as water. It all adds up to what experts are saying, and I quote, a public relations disaster and embarrassment for this Prime Minister. When is the Prime Minister going to do the right thing and put the brakes on this terrible idea?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we consulted with our stakeholders for the last whole year, right? We consulted with municipalities, with provinces, with the trade unions, with building councils, with the municipal leaders, with the mayors, they all understand that we have put forward an ambitious plan to build infrastructure that their communities need. They're the one who select the projects. They're the one who prioritize which project to fund. And we are so proud that we will be mobilizing private capital to build more infrastructure that our communities need and deserve, Mr. Speaker.
The opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this is going to turn out to be the ultimate cash for access project. Mr. Speaker, the experts don't like it, his officials don't like it, taxpayers don't like it, and I don't think the Prime Minister's members even like it. This bank is not in the public interest. So why is he pushing ahead with it? Mr. Speaker, this is $35 billion that belongs to Canadians. Why won't the Prime Minister put this money to better use instead of helping out a group of wealthy bankers?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the out of the $186 billion that we are investing in Canadian communities, only 8% will be delivered through the bank. The rest of the money will go to provinces and municipalities through the traditional funding that is available to build more housing, to build more shelters so women fleeing domestic violence have a decent place to live, reducing commute time for communities, reducing gridlock that our urban centers are facing. That is what our communities expect us to do. That's exactly what we are delivering, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government seems to be equivalent to in conflict of interest, dubious involvement of BlackRock in the design of the bank, choosing executives behind closed doors before the bank's even created, $15 billion taken from small and medium-sized municipalities to give it to rich foreign investors. Everything behind closed doors without real consultation in the Commons. Is this the beginning of sponsorship scandal 2.0?
Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are proud to say that under our transit plan, more mid-sized communities have received more funding under our plan than they ever did under the Harper plan, right? We have dedicated $2 billion for small communities only, so we can help build the infrastructure their communities need. Our plan is focused on all communities, regardless of the size. Canadians expect us to treat them fairly. That's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Order the Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about BlackRock. The Minister tells us that all information on the bank is available, and yet through an access to information request, we got a document about one of the meetings organized by BlackRock for their clients, in which the Prime Minister, the Minister of Infrastructure, and many other ministers took part. And what's strange is we can't see the list of guests or the topics involved because they were redacted completely. Is that transparency, Mr. Speaker? What are the Liberals hiding exactly right now?
Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the presentation that we made to investors available on public, honourable member is welcome to read it. I hope he read it, because there's nothing dubious about it. We're very proud that we are attracting international capital to invest in our Canadian infrastructure. We are encouraging our own pension funds, CPPBI, the Caisse de Dépôt, who invest in foreign countries to invest in our own country to create jobs for the middle class and build the necessary infrastructure that our communities need. We do better, and we will continue to better than the previous government.
Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Minister, in such a rush to go ahead with the privatization bank to please his Bay Street friends, yet there are many questions that remain unanswered for a bank that will cost the taxpayer $35 billion. Given that context, will the Minister agree to split the bill on the bank from the omnibus bill, an omnibus bill that we were promised would never appear in this again, and have an in-depth study for a question that deserves that kind of study?
tell as a former municipal councillor that one of the things that our municipalities need is a consistent, sustainable, and long-term funding, which they lack from the previous government. We have been consulting with our partners for the last year to establish the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We talk to unions, we talk to provinces, territories, we talk to investors, we talk to all sort of Canadians, we talk to many of the people. As a matter of fact, the honourable member was with me in Washington when we consulted with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund on the creation of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for North Island, Powell River. Order.
And separate it from the omnibus bill. Mr. Speaker, the priority of corporations isn't to provide infrastructure, it's to make profit. I know it's breaking news. The Liberals secretly plan to develop their privatization bank with corporations behind closed doors. That's as transparent as, say, a black rock. If the Liberals actually want to put Canadians ahead of corporate interests, will they simply commit that there will be no tolls or user fees as a result of this bank?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, we always put Canadians ahead of anything else. We approved 11 projects in members' own riding. 11 projects in members' own riding with a combined investment of $34 million this year, Mr. Speaker. That is putting Canadians first. That would not happen under the previous government, and that would not happen if her party was in power, because they had no plan for infrastructure, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Well, let's just get this clearer, Mr. Speaker. It's not just the NDP raising red flags. KPMG, you know, that old socialist firm, provided a report to the government that said the so-called infrastructure bank could lead to, quote, public relations disasters and embarrassment. Embarrassment because of the potential to slow down projects, lack of clear details, and Canadians' aversion to user fees. So will the Liberals reconsider this corporate welfare bank? We're just trying to save them from some embarrassment.
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we have some of the world-known investment funds here in Canada. CCPBI, one of them. OMERS, one of them, right? These are the funds who would like to invest in Canadian infrastructure to grow our economy and create jobs for the middle class. That would benefit Canadians from coast to coast. That's exactly what our plan talks about, and we will continue to invest in our traditional funding models, and we will continue to engage with our private sector, because they're the one who deliver infrastructure on behalf of Canadians now as well, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly.
Hello.
Order. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, Mr. Speaker, the same report that my colleague just mentioned also mentioned that the bank would be a bureaucratic nightmare. It's additional red tape for municipalities, more delays, and more fees for everyone. So taxpayers will pay for this bank. But needs for infrastructure are very urgent. Everyone agrees. But the money is slow in coming, even for public investment by the government. And this situation will just get worse because of this privatization bank. So why is the minister favoring the interests of private investors behind closed doors rather than municipalities that need his help?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is absolutely incorrect when he says money is slow flowing, because we approved 2,200 projects with combined investment of $20 billion with provinces and municipalities, and almost 50% of those projects are underway. They're allowing us to create transit system that is accessible for people with disabilities. We're allowing them to buy 1,000 buses that will improve transit service. We're improving drinking water in our communities, Mr. Speaker. We are delivering on what we promised to Canadians, and we will continue to do so.
Honourable member for Carleton.
BlackRock billionaires met the Prime Minister in Davos, and then again in New York, and then at the Shangri-La Summit, and they've had unfettered access to staff, officials, and ministers ever since, all to discuss how they will use $35 billion tax dollars in the new infrastructure bank. Now, taxpayers have had a whole 2 hours of consultation in a parliamentary committee. Why does the Prime Minister have 2 years for the billionaires who have everything to gain, and only 2 hours for the taxpayers who have everything to lose.
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the honourable member there are a number of projects being funded in his own riding as well, through by the other government. So we are not ignoring the needs of Canadians. Obviously, we want to work with all stakeholders. We want to work with the unions. We want to work with the building trades. We want to work with Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And we want to work with private sector. We believe that a private sector can deliver more infrastructure that our communities need. If we can leverage public dollars, what's wrong with that? He may have something against private sector. We do.
Honourable member for Carleton. Order.
On to another group of billionaires. The Bombardier-Baudouin family has super voting shares in the company that give it a slim 53% control of the company. Now, they can't raise desperately needed cash by issuing new shares because they would lose their majority, and along with it, the privileges to shower themselves in money and hire family members onto the executive. So they get taxpayers' money instead from Liberal governments here and in Quebec. The Prime Minister has used $400 million tax dollars to protect these feudal privileges. Will he now join with other investors and ask them to step aside?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on the long-term viability and success of the Canadian aerospace sector. Our investment in research and development and Bombardier will help secure thousands of high-quality jobs in that sector across Canada. Canadians and shareholders have expressed their concerns with the remuneration package for senior executives at Bombardier. Shareholders are now taking their action and they're responding. We're watching that situation carefully, Mr. Speaker, but our investment in science and technology is sound.
Honourable member for Barrie, Springwater, Oro Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has expensed a $14,000 TV, over $20,000 on Snapchat filters, and $30,000 on Broadway tickets. I have one simple question for the Prime Minister. What was he thinking?
Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Our Prime Minister and our government has made it very clear to the world that Canada is back when it comes to leadership on progressive values, on climate change, on human rights for 10 years.
Order. I know the honourable members are enjoying the comments of the Honourable President of the Treasury Board, but I can't hear them. Can't hear myself. Order. I'm glad somebody can hear me. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board is a few more
Speaker,
moments.
when it comes to human rights, when it comes to progressive leadership on climate change, when it comes to the kind of leadership that the world needs today, our Prime Minister and our government is providing that leadership after 10 years of Canada creating a vacuum in terms of progressive values in the world. Our government is stepping up and doing the right thing.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, what's clear, Mr. Speaker, is Canada is back in debt. While the Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, in typical Liberal fashion, the Prime Minister and these Liberals have absolutely no respect for Canadian taxpayers. The Prime Minister wasted nearly $2,000 on cardboard cutouts for himself. Then he spent $30,000 on Broadway tickets for his rich friends. Then he charged Canadian taxpayers over $291,000 for his lavish vacations on Billionaire Island in St. Kitts. How can the Prime Minister justify subsidizing his lavish lifestyle on the backs of struggling Canadians?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years, the Harper government added $150 billion to the national debt. And, Mr. Speaker, what did we end up with? Maybe a fake lake, maybe a few gazebos, but we did not get the kinds of investments in communities that we are making today. We're investing unprecedented amounts in infrastructure. We are building stronger communities. We are building a stronger middle class, and we will continue to do that. That is why we have had in the last 6 months the best job creation in 10 years in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, more than ever, we see that this government has become an expert in burlesque and ridiculous spending. When it's not the Prime Minister who has these $2,000 cardboard cutouts, we have the Aboriginal Affairs Minister who has a $14,000 TV, or we have these $20,000 Snapchat filters, or $30,000 Broadway tickets for millionaires. Is there anyone in this government who can stand up and give it one good explanation for these completely ridiculous expenditures? Order.
I'd ask this side of the House to quiet down.
The Honourable Minister of Social Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government was elected with a promise to growing the economy and the middle class and have more people join the middle class. There are many pieces of good news. We have the Canada Child Benefits. 9 out of 10 families benefit. In the riding of my friend from Louis Saint Laurent, 21,500 children now benefit from this $200 per month, non-taxable every month. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. It's so sad to see an honourable man like this become the defender of such stupid and ridiculous expenditures, as we just mentioned. The minister just said, we were elected. Of course, I believe you were elected. Not you, of course, but they were elected with promises to have a tiny little deficit. 10 billion, now all of a sudden it's 30 billion. Mr. Speaker, the example comes from above. Seriously, can this member for Quebec, this minister, tell us seriously that he's proud of this, or will he stand up and say, enough public spending? That's what Canadians want. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Order, please.
The
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government is very proud of our accomplishments to date. We've invested judiciously and responsibly in order to grow the economy and help the middle class. Moreover, our plan is working. In the past year, 250,000 new jobs were created. The unemployment rate's gone down from 7.1% to 6.7%. Our plan is working, and we intend to continue forward. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. The Phoenix fiasco has been going on for a year and a half now, and thousands of workers still don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. This week, the Public Service Alliance of Canada filed a grievance on behalf of 60,000 workers it represents. Why? Because the longer this fiasco goes on, the less the Liberals gives them any answers. All these people who work hard in our public services must find out when this nightmare will finally be over. Does the government even have a date in mind to give them, or has it simply given up? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Public Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to reassure public servants that we are working extremely hard to remedy the Phoenix pay system problems. We've been working on it for a long time. We're providing the human and financial resources necessary, and I can assure my colleague we're doing this in partnership with the public service unions. What we will not do, Mr. Speaker, is do what the Conservatives did, is fire the same people we need to solve these payroll problems that they left us.
Order. The Liberals' Bill C-27 is an attack on stable, secure workplace pensions, and it would let employers back away from commitments to workers and pensioners. There have been no consultations, and we are seeing the private sector salivate at the profits associated with this bill, including a CEO who talked about how the changes would directly benefit his company. Which company, you ask? Well, Morneau Schaffel, of course. Speaking of, Will the finance minister admit that his promise to consult was just a sham, and will he immediately withdraw this anti-Labour bill that attacks workers' pensions?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government wants to help Canadians achieve a safe and dignified retirement, and it is our key to our plan to help the middle-class Canadians. Bill C-27 aims to broaden the scope of retirement saving opportunities available to Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Under our legislation, individuals have a choice. Those who do not consent maintain their benefits in their current form. Mr. Speaker, we are willing to take all the necessary time to give all parties the opportunities to share their suggestions regarding this process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Côte-de-Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, transparency, openness, integrity. The Liberals opposite throw these words around incessantly but never put them into action. The first appointment to the top parliamentary officer is done under the sign of partisanship. You donate to the Liberal Party, you help the Prime Minister during his election campaign, and you get the job of Commissioner of Official Languages. Will the Prime Minister finally set aside partisanship and protect official languages and not his personal interests? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our two official languages are at the heart of our identity and history. With regard to appointments, our government is committed to make sure that the process is rigorous, open, and transparent. And we wish to find the best candidate for every position. The role of the Official Languages Commissioner is very important, and we want the person to have all the qualifications necessary. An announcement will be made in due course.
Mr. Speaker, we learned that the Prime Minister plans to appoint a recently retired provincial Liberal minister as the new official languages watchdog. The Prime Minister promised a new appointments process, and well, this is certainly new. Appointing a clear partisan to be an officer of Parliament, an officer of this place, is unprecedented. Will the Prime Minister withdraw this nomination before he completely undermines the impartiality and the independence of the Official Languages Commissioner?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to provide the same response in our second official language, English. Our two official languages are at the heart of who we are as Canadians. Our government is firmly committed to a rigorous, open and transparent process for all public appointments. The Official Languages Commissioner is a critically important role. We will ensure that the recommended person is highly qualified. Our announcement will be made in due course.
Honourable Member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Mr. Speaker, this week at committee, Professor Erwin Kotler lamented the ongoing suffering of Baha'i at the hands of the tyrannical Iranian regime. His assertion is that the wrongful imprisonment of 7 of their leaders by the Iranian regime should be viewed as a litmus test of their commitment to human rights and regional security. Will the Minister of Foreign Affairs heed the advice of this former Liberal cabinet minister and demand the release of the 7 Baha'i leaders before deploying any permanent diplomatic mission to Iran?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we know that the former government's policy of isolation was not in the best interest of Canada, nor was it in the best interest of Iranians. The best way to advance human rights and consular issues in Iran is by speaking directly with the regime. And let me be clear, we oppose Iran's support for terrorist organizations, its threats towards Israel, its ballistic missile program, and its support for the murderous Assad regime in Syria. By raising these issues directly, we are holding Iran to account. The minister has done that, and we will continue to do that in the best interest of all Canadians.
Member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our subcommittee heard that the Iranian government has created a cesspool of corruption and violence, massive numbers of public executions, deliberate destruction of religious minorities such as the Baha'i, a violation of international territories, expanded state-sponsored terrorism, a governance system that crushes dissent, and numerous departments under the direct control of President Rouhani, which directly and routinely violate domestic law. Why is this Liberal government more interested in sitting at the table with Rouhani than listening to international human rights defenders like Erwin Kotler?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Monsieur le Président, comme je viens juste de dire...
Mr. Speaker, as I just said, there's no better way to advance on consular cases and human rights than to speak directly with the Iranian regime. We continue to oppose Iran's support for terrorist organizations, to their threats against Israel, and to their ballistic missile program. By raising these questions with them directly, we will make Iran accountable, and the previous government's isolationist policy did not work. We will defend Canadians' rights and promote human rights.
Member for Cowichan-Malahat-Langford.
Yesterday, I asked the Prime Minister what he was doing about the 3 international drug treaties that keep marijuana illegal. Mr. Speaker, it wasn't a trick question, and yet the Prime Minister responded with talking points and refused to address the subject. If we do nothing about these treaties by the deadline of July 1st, which I remind all honourable members is 7 weeks away, when we could be in breach of our international accords, can the Liberals just put down the talking points and tell this House what they are doing about those treaties before the July 1st deadline?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, as our Prime Minister reiterated yesterday, we are taking a regulatory approach to the legalization and regulation of cannabis that puts health and safety of Canadians at the forefront. We are currently examining a range of issues that include our international commitments. As the member opposite should know, 8 states in the U.S. have legalized marijuana, and Uruguay has also legalized marijuana, and they're among the countries that have international treaties with Canada. We are committed to working with our global partners to best promote public health and to combat the illicit trafficking of drugs.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, following Volkswagen's diesel dupe scandal, the U.S. government forced Volkswagen to pay $2 billion in environmental indemnities. That's $2 billion invested in charging stations for electric vehicles. Meanwhile, in Canada, we're still waiting for the results of Environment and Climate Change Canada's investigation. My question is simple. Can the minister promise that Volkswagen will invest money in charging stations in Canada? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank my colleague for the question. There is an investigation by Environment and Climate Change Canada underway into this file, and I can't say any more on that subject.
Been in the islands.
Mr. Speaker, in 2010, the former government closed prison farms throughout the country. They did this based on ideology and not sound evidence. In my riding of Kingston and the Islands, 2 prison farms were closed. To this day, community members continue to rally for their reopening as a productive form of rehabilitation. Can the Minister of Public Safety please update this House on the re-establishment of prison farms, in particular in the Kingston area?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the Correctional Service of Canada is establishing an expert panel to help with re-establishing penitentiary farms in the Kingston area. The panel's 8 volunteer members have expertise in business, agriculture, employment, and the rehabilitation of offenders. Last summer, more than 6,000 people participated in consultations on this issue, and we will continue working with the community to implement evidence-based policies that promote effective rehabilitation and public safety.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
It's a vote winner.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have dragged their feet since the election on expanding Canada's sanctions laws. This week, powerful new evidence Canada's laws governing criminal financial activity are dysfunctional. Revelations of elaborate Russian money laundering schemes involving millions of dollars through Canadian shell companies only came to light because of details hand-delivered to the RCMP and journalists by anti-Putin crusader Bill Browder. Mr. Speaker, just how long will the Liberals procrastinate on the Foreign Affairs Committee's unanimous Magnitsky recommendations to get tough on corruption?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite knows our position when it comes to Russia is clear, and that it was our government that increased sanctions against Russia in addition to supporting the sanctions of the former government. The question of how to effectively apply sanctions for human rights abuses and for foreign corruption was among the issues that the member and the committee examined, and we welcome the release of the Standing Committee's unanimous recommendations. We are carefully considering those, including the recommendations around Magnitsky and about sanctions measures for human rights violations and foreign corruption. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Foreign Affairs Committee study of Canada's sanctions regimes revealed shocking dysfunction and incapacity among government departments and agencies tasked with detecting and prosecuting international financial fraud. The data provided by Mr. Broder to the Mounties reveals undetected money laundering in Canada of a sort more often associated with shady tax havens in Europe and the Caribbean. Now, the unanimous committee recommendations to stiffen Canada's sanctions laws are direct and uncomplicated. When will the government act to crack down on international fraudsters using Canada as a safe haven?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the question of the effective application of sanctions for human rights abuses and foreign corruption is one of the issues that was studied by the Foreign Affairs Committee, which the member across the way is a member of. We await the committee's findings and reports, including concerning the Magnitsky rules for human rights violations. But our view on Russia is clear. We have implemented more sanctions than the previous government.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Records show that one of the sets of Broadway tickets that the Prime Minister bought for wealthy bankers and diplomats was for the permanent mission of Venezuela to the UN. The head of the permanent representative at this mission has been a man who was, among other things, the longest-serving cabinet minister under despot ruler Hugo Chavez, and then served as foreign affairs minister to the ruthless Nicolas Maduro. Can the Prime Minister confirm that the Liberals use Canadian tax dollars to wine and dine this man while Venezuelans starve?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Canada-U.S. Relations.
Mr. Speaker, we're glad to have welcomed guests from Newfoundland and Labrador to the Come From Away production. This was to help our American friends, and we're focused on the economy. And speaking of the economy and American friends, we know how to get trade deals done. Mr. Speaker, we've done...
Order. I'd ask the member for Grant Prairie Mackenzie and others who are excited and who feel strongly about these matters, including the member for York Simcoe, to come to order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll continue. We've overturned discriminatory coal legislation in the U.S. We've completed CETA negotiations. We've persuaded Mexico and China to end their bans. Mr. Speaker, trade negotiations with the U.S. have not yet begun, but if and when they do, we will be ready.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Yikes. Venezuelans have taken to the street en masse to demand an end to the authoritarian rule that is destroying their country. President Maduro responded by launching tear gas at them. The Americans have already imposed targeted sanctions against certain Venezuelans, and by contrast, the Liberals use Canadian tax dollars to buy Broadway tickets for a Venezuelan mission that's led by a former Maduro cabinet minister. The Prime Minister waxes eloquent about protecting human rights, so when will he announce targeted sanctions against Venezuelan human rights abusers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member opposite for the question. We know that the situation in Venezuela is rapidly deteriorating, and we are deeply concerned with their intention to withdraw from the OAS. On April 3rd, Canada took a leadership role in co-sponsoring an OAS resolution to reiterate our call on Venezuela to restore constitutional order and respect democratic rights. We call on Venezuela to release all political prisoners and set an electoral calendar without delay. We are working extensively with our partners through the OAS and colleagues on this important issue. That's because Canada takes serious its role in the world, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Order. Mr. Speaker, every day thousands of cyclists and pedestrians cross railway lines at unregulated crossings in order to avoid long detours. For years, they've been calling for safer crossings. If the minister has the clear power to close or modify a crossing, unfortunately, the law is not clear when it comes to whether he can open a new one. I've heard very contradictory interpretations, even from members of this government. Bill C-322 aims to correct the situation. Will the minister support my bill and take on the authority he needs to ensure the safety of Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to reassure everyone of how important rail safety is for us, and I'd like to remind anyone crossing railways illegally by passing under or over fences that they are doing something illegal and something dangerous. 46 people lost their lives last year on railway lines, and 19 lost them at crossings. This is a very dangerous activity, and there are already existing mechanisms to deal with this issue.
Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were thrilled to learn that Franklin's ship, HMS Airbus, have been found thanks to the work of the Kitikmeot Inuit, whose oral history helped pinpoint its location. Canada spent millions recovering artifacts from the Airbus, and a memorandum of understanding with Britain says any artifacts will be given to the Canadian people. But Britain is claiming ownership, and the artifacts are being sent to the UK for public exhibition. Will the minister ensure Britain acknowledges joint ownership by the Kitikmeot and Canada before she releases the artifacts?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to thank the member opposite for working so collaboratively on parks issues. Our government is committed to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and we value our relationship with the Inuit of Nunavut and the Nunavut government. The wrecks of HMS Airbus and HMS Terror, including the artifacts found on the wrecks, are officially the property of the UK government. As we celebrate the discovery of HMS Terror and HMS Airbus, as the member noted, with the help of traditional knowledge, Parks Canada will be working closely with the Inuit Heritage Trust to establish joint ownership of the artifacts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Once again, the Liberals are over-promising and under-delivering, with prairie farmers being their latest casualty. When asked if farmers' shipping rights will be protected under the law, the minister dismissed them by saying, and I quote, "no comment." If they expire, or if the Liberals refuse to make these protections permanent, farmers will be railroaded. When will the Transport Minister end his obvious disinterest in the concerns of our Western Canadian farmers and introduce legislation that protects their shipping rights?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I've been working very hard with the Minister of Agriculture in the past year with respect to our grain farmers. They represent an important part of our economy, and I want to thank them for it. And I have been meeting with them. I've been meeting with the shippers and the railways in order to modernize our freight rail legislation. 10% of what our railways transport is grain. It's extremely important, and we will be coming forward shortly with modern freight rail legislation.
The Honourable Member for Brandon Souris.
Mr. Speaker, spring seeding is a busy time for farmers. They don't have time to worry about Liberal politicians in Ottawa who are working arduously to make their life less profitable. Tucked away in the fine print of the Liberal budget is a plan to eliminate the use of farmers being able to use deferred cash tickets. This could be financially disastrous for many farmers, Mr. Speaker. So will the Minister of Agriculture commit to dropping this destructive plan and stop threatening the livelihoods of hard-working farm families?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Being the former farmer and the Minister of Agriculture, I was certainly pleased with the last budget. Finally, the government certainly became aware. We announced $70 million in science research to add on to the $30 million originally in the previous budget. We $1.26 billion in Strategic Innovation Fund, Mr. Speaker. $950 million in innovation superclusters. And, Mr. Speaker, the list goes on and on. This government understands the importance of agriculture and will continue to make sure that the agricultural sector remains strong in this country.
Member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou. Order.
Mr. Speaker, Canada needs the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women to be successful. There's no excuse for it to take over a year before it even begins to hear from families. As McLean noted this week, it's falling apart before it even begins. A communications director was fired, another senior advisor has resigned. It appears to be in complete disarray. If this inquiry fails, the minister is responsible. If it takes years for the families to be heard, she has failed. What immediate action will the minister take to get this inquiry back on track?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is committed to ending the ongoing national tragedy that have surrounded women and girls in this country. We are confident that the Commission has the tools, the resources, and the networks to ensure that the voices of families are heard and that they have the support they need. We have authorized under the terms of reference to the Commission to examine and report on the root causes of all forms of violence that Indigenous women and girls experience and the great vulnerability to that violence. In addition to that, we will continue to invest in the root causes that impact this issue.
Député de Shefford.
Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, our government understands that an efficient and modern infrastructure network is important for our economy and all Canadians. Our government's investments in infrastructure in budgets 2016 and 2017 are unprecedented in the history of Canada. The port in Trois-Rivières is essential to the local economy and to the entire region. Can the Minister of Transport update the House about how our government is updating this critical infrastructure for Trois-Rivières and Mauricie? The Honourable Minister. Well, of course, I'd like to thank the member for Shefford for his important question. And I would reiterate at the same time our sincere condolences to all of the residents of Mauricie who were affected by flooding. Concerning the port in Trois-Rivières, I had the pleasure of visiting it last summer and getting an update on this very important port in the St. Lawrence. As you know, $3.6 million were budgeted in 2015 in order to extend Quay Number 10 and also to create a storage multifunctional zone.
Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, a new CIBC study clearly indicates that hardworking Canadians are forced to take time off and are stuck paying $33 billion a year in out-of-pocket expenses to take care of aging loved ones. The Prime Minister doesn't care. He's refused to appoint a Minister for Seniors, and he's failed to deliver a comprehensive national strategy for senior care in Canada. Canadian seniors are suffering as a result of the Prime Minister's blatant inaction. When will the Prime Minister finally stop ignoring the needs of Canadian seniors?
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very grateful to our colleague for giving me the opportunity to speak about our record in supporting our seniors. In particular, Mr. Speaker, in supporting our most vulnerable seniors. We have reintroduced to 65 years old the age of eligibility to old age security, which means that 100,000 vulnerable seniors, Mr. Speaker, will not need to enter into severe poverty. We have increased the guaranteed income supplement by up to $1,000, which means that 900,000 Canadian seniors are now living in a more dignified and a more secure retirement.
Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
This weekend, because this government has failed to act, volunteers tired of waiting will clean up 16 abandoned vessels in Oak Bay on Vancouver Island. Wow. So far, there's no legislation, no regulation, no money for abandoned vessels in the 2017 budget. And this government even failed to meet its own self-imposed 6-month deadline. So when will this government take the load off coastal communities and take the action that they promised?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. We did make that promise in the Oceans Protection Plan, an unprecedented investment in ensuring greater security of our maritime waters. Our Prime Minister announced it last November. We're extremely proud of it. It is an extremely ambitious plan which is going to make our maritime waters safer for future generations. And part of that includes a plan to address the question of abandoned and derelict vessels, something that has never been done before. We are taking that in charge and we'll do it.
Honourable Member for Oakville North Burlington. Order.
Mr. Speaker, we know that aquatic invasive species pose a significant threat to our waterways. My riding of Oakville North Burlington's close proximity to Lake Ontario enhances our quality of life and provides many economic opportunities. But the intrusion of invasive species in our Great Lakes are having a profound impact on our natural ecosystems and economic activities. Can the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans share what actions the government is taking to combat aquatic invasive species?
Here, here. Tough question. Order. The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Oakville North Burlington for her important work in defence of the Great Lakes. Mr. Speaker, Canada is committed to protecting Canada's waters. Budget 2017 proposes $43.8 million over 5 years for a national aquatic invasive species initiative. These funds, Mr. Speaker, will be used to prevent, detect, and eradicate high-risk aquatic invasive species using obviously innovative science and advice. This significant commitment will allow us not only to protect Canadian waters like the Great Lakes from invasive species, it will allow us to continue, Mr. Speaker, the important fight against Asian carp and sea lamprey in the Great Lakes, something I know that concerns my colleague from Burlington very much.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Les-Rades. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Red Cross has been mobilized to help Canadians who are the victims of flooding. It's important to be generous, as many of us have been, or were rather, with Lac Mégantic in 2013. Now, nearly 4 years after the tragedy in Lac Mégantic, residents there continue to suffer from PTSD because the train that continues to run through the city every day carries the memory of the tragedy with it. After signing a petition in favor of the bypass route and after having meeting with the mayor and raising people's hopes, can the Prime Minister commit today to finally create this bypass as soon as possible? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, as you know, the Prime Minister committed a few months ago to accelerate the process. That's why I had the opportunity to speak with Premier Couillard recently and also with Minister Coiteux. I am also in regular contact with the Mayor of Lac Mégantic, Mr. Cloutier. We are seeing if we will be able to accelerate the process. As you know, we recently announced a study that will start May 23rd and last for 2 months. We want to do everything we can to improve the process, and we are working very closely with different levels of government. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher-les-Patriotes-Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the Quebec Court of Appeal came to the same conclusion as the Bloc Québécois. Ottawa's plans for the Securities Commission of Quebec is unconstitutional. At this point, we're not just talking about intrusion, we're talking about full-on interference. Ottawa is launching an assault on Quebec's jurisdiction and threatening the National Assembly's sovereignty. This is serious. And they're ruining Montreal's economy. So if the 40 Liberal members from Quebec still exist, how can they justify letting their party attack Quebec's authority? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, and I thank my colleague for his question. Our government received the Quebec Court of Appeal's decision, and we are reviewing it attentively. The court had already said that the federal government has a role to play in the management of systemic risks on capital markets. We carry out this responsibility in a collaborative fashion and while respecting all provincial and territorial jurisdiction. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, speaking of the National Assembly, yesterday, members in Quebec unanimously passed the following motion, that the National Assembly oppose the federal government's decision to establish the Infrastructure Bank's headquarters in Toronto rather than in Montreal. Everyone in Quebec opposes this decision. Everyone except the 40 Liberal ghost members from Quebec. When will these 40 ghost members start working to help Quebec instead of harming it? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
We were very pleased to see the interest of number of municipalities to headquarter the Canada Infrastructure Bank, and we feel that regardless of the location, every municipality will benefit from the creation of the Infrastructure Bank because they can undertake projects can mobilize private sector as well as public dollars to build the infrastructure their communities need. And we hear from that municipalities all the time. That is why we have put forward an ambitious plan to help them build the infrastructure they need, grow our economy, create jobs for the middle class and those working hard to be part.
Order. The honourable member for Hamilton Centre has a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's actually a point of privilege. Once again, I find myself joining others who are rising to raise an issue of my rights being infringed. And I rise, believe me, much more in sorrow than in anger, because the incident that happened within less than an hour of being at a PROC meeting where we were dealing with exactly this issue in terms of privilege being denied in terms of access to the Hill. I want to say at the outset, I would ask for just a couple of moments to describe what happened. In the interest of time and in fairness, because we're dealing with this at PROC, I will not be asking you to rule on a prima facie case, but I will be asking my colleagues at PROC to accept this as one more example of a challenge that we have to overcome. And if I can, very briefly, I left my office in Justice on my way over here. I did not lose a vote. I did not lose a chance to speak, but I did have a side meeting set up at the request of the Minister of Democratic Institutions, and I did miss that. So there was implications for this. I come out of the Justice, Speaker.